The butterfly effect. The idea that one tiny change in the historical record could cascade forward through time, changing our destinies. It is fascinating to consider these macro-level what-if scenarios, but as someone with main character syndrome, I find it just as interesting to imagine what might have happened if my own history had gone just a little bit differently. What if the US draft wasn't active in 1969? My dad wouldn't have been in Montana in 1973. He never would have met my mom, and I wouldn't be here telling you about it. What if 9 Januaries ago, I hadn't been awake at 3 a.m., I hadn't checked who was online on a now-defunct dating site, and I hadn't come across the only other person I ever saw there who considered video games important enough to put in her profile? I never would have met my wife, and the last decade would be unrecognizable. But some things are more critical than existence, more important than romance. The lepidopter in question that truly keeps me up at night is this. In 2001, in that cataclysmic turmoil that I felt just after the Dreamcast died, at this most critical and formative period in my life, what if I had gone with the Xbox instead of the GameCube? Because even in the version of my life that actually happened, I cannot possibly overstate just how much I could not escape Halo. You can see it in the way the case itself talks about the game. It wasn't just a killer app, it was the killer app. A term it's so thoroughly defined that it was basically retired after Halo. I was, and you're going to be shocked to hear this, the founder of the video game club in my high school. I advertised it relentlessly, and probably a bit obnoxiously, before our first meeting, and it paid off. That first day, we probably had 50 kids show up. Then they found out we couldn't play M-rated games in an officially sanctioned club, which meant, of course, we couldn't play Halo. And so after that first meeting, the club's numbers dropped from 50 to about 20, just me and the other dorks. And some of those dorks, funnily enough, resented Halo. Before the term casual gamer referred to players of mobile games, sports games, or the Wii, casual gamers were dudes who thought everything that wasn't Halo was just a kid's toy. Halo 2 launched on a Tuesday. I knew so many people, so many of my friends, who were conspicuously absent that day. My usual table at lunch was a ghost town. By the time my friends came back on Wednesday, they had all already finished the game. But they hadn't finished the fight, and I got to see them struggle to bridge that disconnect between their hype and the lack of payoff. But in 2007, when that payoff finally came, it was weirdly vindicating, even as someone who wasn't a fan of Halo, because I was, forever and always, a fan of video games. And seeing how this game was being discussed, how visible it was, how even my parents who met in Montana in 1973 knew who Master Chief was, never in my life had I felt so much like we had made it. God, I miss that original game fuel. But I only experienced any of this secondhand, through the eyes of my friends, through the lens of the internet, and through cultural osmosis, through feeling the effects of the insurmountable impact that Halo had on my favorite hobby. Playing it now, it's funny how it starts with this tutorial, teaching you the very FPS controls that it standardized so thoroughly that most games don't even bother teaching them anymore. Speaking of butterfly effects, if inverted had been the default in Halo, if that's what it had started with, it absolutely would have become the standard. It's fun to think about, but I ultimately can't know how my tastes would have changed, how my experiences would have been altered, how my life would have gone different if I had owned an Xbox instead of a GameCube. All I can say for sure is that it would have been different. And in a moment where the Xbox brand seems to be buckling, it's nice to look back on the game that made it. I may not be a fan of Halo in this reality, but I have always and will always respect it.